Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and I'm doing something I haven't done in some time. I'm doing a book review. So, I recently, as in 2 days ago, finished reading Star Wars Shadow of the Sith by Adam Christopher. So this book is set in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, when Rey is about 6 years old. So, you know the scene in the flashback scene where Rey is calling to her parents to come back? Yeah, it's set around that event, more or less. But there's a couple threads. We have the Luke and Lando story, the Rey and her family story, and then we have the Ochi of Bestoon story, with a few others sprinkled in just to help fill it out. Those I will call the mainstream, but we also have a story from a former acolyte of the Beyond, Kiza, I think is her name, who's basically being possessed by a mask of an ancient Sith Lord. And we also have some insight into Pride. Yes, that Pride, Admiral Pride from Tross. I'm pretty sure it's that character. If I'm wrong, let me know. But, so we get to see a little bit of what's going on with them. And I think there might have been one or two other characters that we got to see a point of view from. But those are the main ones. But the first three are the main ones. With alternating between Luke and Lando, of course. But I still consider those stories is intertwined because they're working together on all of this. So what's basically going on? Well, the shadow of the Sith looms large across the galaxy. That's essentially what's going on. We have the ancient Sith masks. We have Exegol being not necessarily uncovered but learned about. We have people seeking to get to Exegol, people seeking to stop people from getting into Exegol, and all that. Of course, the Wayfinders won't be found yet for another couple decades in the universe. And probably only about a decade and a half to two, maybe. But yeah. But essentially, Ochi of Bestoon wants to get back to Exegol because he wants to basically be healed of something. But to do so, he must go kidnap Rey, and then the Sith, that a blade he's given will show him the way. Basically, complicated stuff going on. But it's also, we have other characters seeking to get to Exegol, including the former acolyte of the Beyond, who's being possessed by an ancient Sith Lord via his mask. We also have Luke uncovering Exegol, and one thing I really liked about with Luke is that talking about his notes and all that, and how the different translations will. This is how it was written in ancient basic, but this is how it should be written now, which is very much interesting because it's kind of like because he had to translate it from the Sith language. So, like, the first translation produced it with an I, but he spelled it with an E because of, adjusting for language change. But that's very much kind of like how the romanization of many Asian languages, so whether that be Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and several others, or actually for Chinese I should differentiate between Mandarin and Cantonese. But those languages there are not written in the Latin script. In fact, any language not written in the Latin script, Russian, Greek, all of those have to be romanticized into the Latin script, so that way people who are not familiar with their own scripts can still approximate the letters, which can be very hard. Even from one language, let's say from English and Spanish, there's some letters that make different sounds, so that is kind of why sometimes spellings will change between languages, even if they do a transliteration. It's to help the person speaking it to be able to pronounce it more accurately to their own language. There's a reason why Beijing used to be known as Peking. Very different sounding, but that's because of how English sounds are different than Mandarin sounds. But I'm getting off track, but I just love that one little detail just throwing in. Yeah, this is how it probably was spelled back in the day, centuries ago, but based on how we pronounce things now, it needs to be written this way, which is just a neat little thing there. Also, I can't believe this, but look at pretty close to Exegol in this book without realizing it. The transnistatory mist, I think it was. Basically that red thing that they fly through to get to Exegol and Tross. Yeah, Luke gets right up there. He just doesn't realize it at the time. And so does the ancient Sith Lord in the mask. What's left of his spirit or whatnot, too. Also super close by. But who's also doing the biddings of the Sith cultists on Exegol. But once you get lots of complicated stuff, people fighting each other and all that. But one thing that's neat, we learn more about Rey's parents. But one neat thing about her father that I picked up on this is because, being a strange cast of Palpatine, he was basically cast aside on Exegol, and he wasn't, killed or anything, but he wasn't necessarily given a life. He was just told to survive, basically, if that. But he made friends with one of the enslaved workers, and that's when he escapes Exegol, that's the name he takes, Dason, because that's the only name, he felt any kind of connection to, or a person that he felt, treated him well, gave him food, and that taught him to survive on Exegol. But one neat thing is very subtle. It sounded like he got out on Darth Vader's own ship. Because we know in the Star Wars comics that Vader does visit Exegol, with Ochi of Bestoon, by the way. And sounds like when Ochi of Bestoon and Vader leave Exegol, that's when Dason leaves by smuggling himself on the ship. And Vader, I guess, didn't notice it. But just think of this. Some people I know have complained about the Chosen One prophecy and how Rey, somehow destroys it, that ruins Anakin's specialness. But think of this. 1. Anakin did defeat Palpatine at the end of Return of the Jedi. 2. Luke is Vader's son. Okay? Luke helped turn Vader back to the light side and allow Vader to defeat Palpatine. Not to mention, we do also get Force Ghost Anakin giving Luke advice and heal. But Rey would not have been born if her father Dason hadn't escaped on Vader's ship. So see that connection? All this is still revolving around Anakin, even though Anakin is not always making these choices. But probably a better way of putting it, he's the key of the puzzle in the Chosen One prophecy. I'm reinterpreting it. They don't even talk about it in this book, but I'm talking about it because I want to. My impression is Anakin is the key in the puzzle for defeating the Sith. There's other people who have to play roles, who will contribute to it, but without him, none of the other pieces would ever fall into place. That's why he's the Chosen One. Not because he was going to destroy the Sith person himself, but because he was the key to make sure everyone else could do so. Little interpretation I took from there based off of the implication that Vader is how Dason got off of Exegol. But also we got a lot of stuff into Lando too, learning a lot more about him, how he takes on this mission to help Rey and her parents despite knowing nothing about them, all because his own daughter was kidnapped when she was very young and he's been searching for her and still searching for her. Sometimes trying to hide that he's trying to pretend he's searching for her when he's really just, gambling, drinking his worries away. But when he overheard basically Ochi of Bestoon talking about kidnapping a girl, he was like, this might actually help me find my own daughter and help give him maybe new purpose in life. And that's how he ends up at Pisana in The Rise of Skywalker. Which I just love how Rey's parents, they gave basically temporary custody of Rey to Uncle Pluck in order so that way they could lure Ochi of Bestoon away so that way Rey would stay safe. And they chose Uncle Pluck because they knew where he was, and while they didn't necessarily trust him, they trust him to act in his own interest, which means they knew they could, as long as they came back, Rey would be fine. Of course, they don't come back because Ochi of Bestoon kills them, but at least Rey was never found by Ochi of Bestoon, who, because of basically Rey's mother, Miro, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, gets some Aki beads from Pisana that Uncle Pluck had it on her when Ochi of Bestoon captured them, so that way he would think Rey was being hidden on Pisana. So, Ochi goes to Pisana, falls in the sinking field, and dies where they find him in Tross. I mean, that is just, they sacrificed themselves for Rey, which I think is kind of important, shows that they did care about her. And sadly, I do hope Lando and Rey get a moment to talk about this, sometime after Tross, because I feel like Rey should get the knowledge that her parents sacrificed themselves so that way she wouldn't get captured by the Sith. I feel like that'd be something good for Rey to learn, which they didn't talk about in Tross because it hadn't been written yet. Well, it could in universe, but outside of the universe it hadn't been written yet. But I do hope that's something that explored in a future story. Rey learning Lando and Luke are a major part of the reason why, she, wasn't killed as a as a young girl, why she wasn't brought to Palpatine at a young age. That is something I think would be good for Rey to learn. And also learn that her parents sacrificed herself so that, or sacrificed themselves so that way she could live and hopefully have a better life. But it is also very sad that, her parents didn't make it, and thus Uncle Pluck had Rey work off her debt from a young age, which is also sad because, but at least, in some ways, Uncle Pluck could have always turned Rey over to, to those hunters because there was an active bounty, but he never did. Well, granted, once Ochi died on Persona, that was never a possibility. But, he did, never, even in, well, he's not a good person, certainly, he does act in his own self-interest. And really, all he does in The Force Awakens is call in a report on a droid. That was it. Sure, maybe it was connected with Rey, but for him, probably by that point, Rey had paid off any debt, so he had no more business interest in keeping Rey around, so it didn't matter to him at that point. But I do kind of like how, well, we can't trust him on a personal level, but we can trust him on a business level. Which, sometimes, yeah, if you know what person stands for, even if you don't trust them, you can still, trust that they'll do what they will do, so therefore you can plan around it. Which is, I think, very much what Rey's parents did. The only thing is they didn't plan on being killed. Well, they knew it was a possibility, hence the Aki beads, but they essentially did know that there was a risk, but they did plan on coming back. So, that's kind of my overall thoughts on the story. As for the writing, I thought it was very well done. I enjoyed seeing all these different points, seeing more of Luke. I just kind of wish Luke told Ben more what was going on, but maybe he will. Hence why Kylo had such a strong reaction when he hears about a girl on Jakku who helped BB-8 escape. I mean, connect those dots, please. I think that would have been some good word connecting. But those are just my thoughts on the story. What are yours? There's so much more I could probably talk about, but I decide I'm going to end this review here, but I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, be sure to like, share, comment, upvote, subscribe, follow, all that stuff, and check out any of the links down below if you haven't done so already. And as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.